So we've just had the Science Cafe here in Dublin on the issue of alternative medicine and does it work, doesn't it work, is it safe or is it dangerous? One of the first things I wanted to explain we had a fantastic audience, huge audience, really enthusiastic. And the first thing I wanted to explain is how I ended up writing a book about alternative medicine and how I ended up being here.
Oh, I don't know if you drink. You can give it to somebody else.
Oh, thank you very much. Cheers, cheers. The idea of me writing a book about alternative medicine is odd because I come from a physics background and I've written about maths and cryptography and cosmology, not normally medicine. But I came across claims that were being made by alternative therapists, which to me seemed absolutely bizarre. People claiming that homeopathy could protect students from malaria that were going to tropical countries. All sorts of odd things, claims in the media, claims on the internet. And so I thought, look, what we've got to do is give people the best available evidence about alternative medicine. And you've got to look at the evidence for each therapy one by one, because each therapy is different, and it's different in terms of how it might treat each individual condition. So we look in the book at in each therapy, acupuncture, herbal medicine, chiropractic, homeopathy, and a whole load more, and try and look at the evidence. Now I say we because I co-authored the book with Edzard Ernst, Professor Edzard Ernst. He's the world's first professor of alternative medicine. And what he doesn't know about alternative medicine kind of isn't really worth knowing. He's spent 15 years looking at every single trial, every single systematic review. And what I spoke about tonight mainly was homeopathy, because it's a kind of classic example of a very widely used alternative therapy, and one that's also been very widely tested. There have been over 200 clinical trials of homeopathy. And the bottom line is that there's still no convincing evidence that homeopathy works for any condition. And to me this is really bizarre because it's incredibly widely used. It's a multi-million-dollar industry. People buy homeopathy for colds and hay fever and more serious conditions as well. So one of the things I tried to discuss this evening, and one of the questions that kind of cropped up in the discussion was, if homeopathy is not backed by any scientific evidence, why do people spend so much money on it? Why do they think it works? Well, there are lots of reasons why people think homeopathy works. Their cold is horrible, they take a homeopathic pill, well the cold can only get better. They think that's a homeopathic pill. They have hay fever, they take a homeopathic pill, the hay fever gets better. Maybe they're taking a conventional drug as well at the same time and they're misattributing it. The placebo effect, huge benefit, the placebo effect. When you take a pill and you have an expectation that pill's going to help you, it boosts your psychology, it boosts your reaction, it boosts your expectation, it boosts your physiology as well. So that's why homeopathy seems to work for people. Let's call it the placebo effect. But in and of itself, homeopathy doesn't work, except for this placebo effect. Now, again, one of the other things I talked about this evening is that a big problem? The placebo effect is wonderful. It makes people feel better, it enhances them. It's a bit unpredictable, it's a bit unreliable, but if all it can do is good, what's wrong with that? And my argument's there. For me, a placebo, a pure placebo, is still unacceptable. And the reasons are several. First of all, if I'm going to give you a placebo and it's going to work for you, I've kind of got to mislead you into making you think that it's a real medicine, like homeopathy. You know, I've got to make you believe that this is really going to work for you. And so I've got to mislead you. I myself, as a practitioner, might genuinely believe in it, but I've got to give you that same false belief if it's going to work for you. Now, I don't think we should be misleading patients. For years, for decades, doctors are increasingly trying to be open and honest with their patients. And I don't think we can go back to the old days where we mislead patients into believing things work when actually they don't. And the really perverse thing is, the more I lie to you, the more I tell you this thing is wonderful and amazing, the bigger the placebo effect. Well, we just don't want to go down that road of making more and more exaggerated claims just to kick in the placebo effect. Secondly, placebos are expensive, they cost money. Could that money be spent better on other things? The placebo, you don't need to have a placebo to get the placebo effect. And by that I mean, if I give you a homeopathic pill for hay fever, you'll get a placebo effect. If I give you an antihistamine, you'll get the real effect of the antihistamine, but you'll also get the placebo effect. So you get a double whammy. If I just give you homeopathy, I'm shortchanging you. And finally, there are kind of side effects. If I give you a homeopathic pill and you take that instead of conventional treatment that can really help you, you may be delaying the treatment of your condition. You may be leading to a worsening condition when you could be actually treating it. I mean, one of the examples, I mentioned it earlier on, and I talked about it at length this evening, was I did a trial or an investigation whereby I asked a young student to visit 10 homeopaths. We made up a story that she was going to visit West Africa, and she didn't like malaria tablets, conventional treatment. She wanted something different. Could the homeopath protect her from malaria? And she went to 10 homeopaths, and every single one of those homeopaths, they were just ordinary homeopaths that you might find on the high street or on the internet. Every single one of them said, here, take this homeopathic remedy instead of conventional treatment. And they were willing to let her go off to West Africa, a place where you can be dead within 3 days from strains of malaria. They were willing to let her do that. And to me, that's the most extreme and sensationalist example of why we shouldn't prescribe placebos. But there are many other reasons why all in all, placebos are a bad idea, why I think homeopathy is a bad idea. I should also say two things here before I finish, because I've been talking too long already. Two things. One is that there are many other alternative therapies that are unproven or disproven. I think reflexology is not backed by evidence. I don't think Reiki is backed by evidence, and I could go on and on. But I'm not anti-alternative therapy. I'm not ideologically opposed to it. We looked in the book at some alternative therapies, and they do seem to work for some conditions. Where the evidence is there, I'm more than happy to endorse them. So, for example, we know that some herbal treatments are effective for some conditions, and that's not so surprising, because some herbal treatments have chemicals in them which interact with our bodies and have an effect. I'd stress that people need to take those herbs in conjunction with their doctor, because those herbs are chemicals. They can have beneficial effects, they can also have adverse effects. So you must still do that under the guidance of your doctor. We looked at things like acupuncture, some evidence, borderline evidence that acupuncture may work for some types of pain and nausea, but it is borderline. Things like massage therapy, things like hypnotherapy for irritable bowel syndrome. So I just wanted to end by saying I'm not anti-alternative therapy, but I am maybe down on several of them which are unproven or disproven.